Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club Podcast, where every week me and Miss Boo take turns picking films to watch and talk about. Some are good, some are bad, and some are brand new. Like this month, ladies and gentlemen, the start of our new theme month, Newvember, at the Film Club. Boo, how are you?
I'm good. I'm a little sad that October is over. Our 3 months of horror has finally come to an end, but I'm also excited that we're doing Newvember.
Yes, the whole theme of this month is movies we have never seen before.
It'll be an interesting dynamic. I've seen today's film, so why don't you tell everybody what we're watching today?
Yes, so my pick for Newvember, the movie I've never seen before, is the movie Giant, starring James Dean, Elizabeth Taylor, Rock Hudson, directed by George Stevens. It's this 3.5 hour epic melodrama set in Texas. It takes place over the course of 30 years. It talks about race, it talks about sexism, it talks about wealth, oil inequality, the death of the mythology of the West.
Old money, new money.
It's wonderful. It also didn't know it was 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
I basically picked this as blind as I can be. I saw the poster, and it looked like a Western. I legitimately thought this was Rebel Without a Cause, but with cowboy hats. I thought that's what this movie was.
I mean, did you think James Dean's Marty McFly and he went, from the 50s back to the
not
the 20s?
Not like that. Okay. Do you want to know the headcanon I came up about with this movie?
Sure, go for it.
So, I don't know if other people do this, where you see a poster and you just make up the movie. But I saw the poster of this, and it's James Dean, and he's big chillin' in a cowboy hat, right?
Yeah.
And it's on I thought he was on a post thing, but I guess he's in a car,
He's
right?
in a car, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought this was, this is a movie about this cowboy guy just as the West is dying out, and he's, the young rebel trying to hold on to the West. I thought it was like some Billy the Kid fucking, shoot 'em up Western. That legit thought that's what it was, with James Dean playing the main character. He ain't even the main character.
No, he's not.
He's the bad guy that's only in 30-ish minutes of the movie.
And he's not really even the bad guy.
I mean, he's the antagonist.
Yeah, he's the antagonist. He's part of this tiny love triangle that we have in this movie.
Yeah, he's also this petty, creepy, racist oil tycoon that's a fucking super alcoholic.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing performance.
Yeah.
And also there's other people in this. I have never seen a movie with Rock Hudson in it or Liz Taylor. So this is new all around for me. And it was great. I really dug this movie.
I know, Dean's eyes are bulging right now, so that means that he is really digging this movie.
Exactly. But on the counterpoint here, you have seen this movie before. Apparently a few times.
Correct. I have seen this movie quite a few times. I have family that is from Texas. My mom was born in Texas, so it's kind of interesting to see Texas on the big screen. I've been there once, but man, I miss it. I want to go back.
We should go. We'll record on location next time we do a Texas movie.
I know, it has to be a cowboy movie, a shoot-'em-up movie.
It'd be nice. We'll do Stagecoach.
So I guess that means you didn't enjoy this movie, since there was no shoot-'em-ups in this.
Are you kidding me? So, 3.5 hour movie.
Yes.
And we started watching this super late, right?
I think we finished at 2 a.m.
Yeah, and I'm over here, it's okay, I got work at 6 a.m. tomorrow, so I'll watch the first half of it, or watch the first hour, and then I'll go to fucking sleep. I'm watching it, I get 30 minutes in, and I'm oh god, this is gonna suck so much ass. It starts off, and it sets up this it's gonna be a fucking romance love triangle movie. It's gonna be Titanic, but with horses, and it's a 50s movie. It's gonna be terrible. And then somebody fucking dies. The sister just fucking dies in first 30 minutes.
She just doesn't die. It's not she just randomly
No, she gets
combusted and died.
She gets bucked from a horse and dies, and I'm wait, what the fuck?
And they warned her.
And then this turns into a fucking soap opera, and there's
you love
fights.
soap operas.
I fucking love soap operas, alright? Telenovelas, mi amore. And I'm watching this shit, and I'm just I get the popcorn out, I start drinking sodas, I'm I gotta finish this shit. And it flies by. The first 30 minutes of this movie, I'll admit, it's a hard watch, because it sets up a totally different movie that you feel in your soul is going to be so lame and cringy and just not aged well. And then it turns into fucking a great story.
Yeah.
That speaks about all this shit. This movie is awesome. James Dean isn't even the best actor in this movie, which is insane. Because Boo is like, of course he is. I'm like, not even. Rock Hudson over here is acting God, working his ass off in this movie. But yeah, no, this movie was fantastic. I particularly enjoyed this movie.
Yes.
Your thoughts?
Again, I've seen this movie. I very much enjoy it. I've watched it many a times.
But yeah, so I guess, well, that's the review, everybody. We said everything we wanted to. You guys have yourself a good one.
So where should we start off?
Well,
because we've talked about how much we enjoy the film, how deep the film is.
Yeah, I mean, this is a super deep movie. I guess it depends. Do you want to try and summarize a 3.5 hour movie?
I think the best way to summarize it is we are going through a 30-year marriage between an East Coaster and a West Coast guy, and it's just the two of them trying to kind of figure each other out and not really doing so successfully.
It's really complicated, because that's the thing. Because the movie opens with Rock Hudson going up to see Liz Taylor, and she's in, like, Maryland, right?
Yeah.
And he's up there, he's buying some fucking horses to take back to Texas, and Liz Taylor is suddenly like, oh my, you're this, like, 7-foot-tall cowboy? I guess I am now wooed. And they get married. I think they get married after knowing each other for, like, 2 days.
That, and he's also buying her horse because her dad feels like this horse is just too wild for her. So it's this thing of, okay, you're taking my horse and you're kind of handsome, so I'm going to take your heart and we're going to go off and live on your 500,000 acres that you own in Texas.
See, marriage was so much simpler back then.
I guess.
So much simpler. But yeah, and then, like, Liz Taylor moves down there and has the culture shock of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Because she's this, like, upscale East Coast socialite, right? Mm-hmm. And she gets down there, and it's not like a whole, oh, this is rough and tumble Texas, you gotta buck up, girl, and get along. It's like, no, she gets there, and it's like, oh no, like, this is Texas. Get in the kitchen.
Well, it's not even get in the kitchen because they have staff that do their own set positions, and that's a problem with Bick's sister in the movie because she's been running this house with her brother God knows how long.
Yeah, whole life.
So you just have the new wife that suddenly comes in and it's like,
invades the territory.
Yeah, and it's like, you kind of see, you understand both sides of the power struggle. You understand the sister, this has been her home her entire life, and you understand the wife that, well, this is my home now, I should be a part of everything that is happening in this home.
Yeah, and it's just this weird dichotomy because Leslie, when she gets there, everybody's like, no, you're a housewife now. Mm-hmm. You're married, your husband's going to do everything, you stay home, you're going to have kids, you're going to watch the kids, that's all you're going to do. And
you're
she wants to be involved in the community. She talks to the servants that are there, they live in this, like, really run-down village. Like, the introduction, we meet the sister, Luz, who is a total cunt, but I fucking love her.
She's tough as nails.
And then we get James Dean, who shows up, and I think he has 2 lines in his opening. Yeah,
he's a ranch hand, and I guess he's been fired by Bick. They have some history where they just don't get along with each other. And it's a thing, where Bick's like, I fired you before I left, and his sister's like, well, you left to get these horses, then you got married and decided to go on a honeymoon, and now you're just coming back. I need help here, so I'm gonna hire who I can trust and who I know will do the job.
And James Dean is such a prick. Well, it's weird because he turns more and more into a prick as the movie goes on. But at the beginning, you're just like, this is going to be the guy that Liz Taylor runs off with, right? Because that's how it sets up. It sets up as like a romance triangle with the sister who's going to try and like push the wife out of the way, and she's going to fall into the arms of James Dean, and they're going to run off and be happy, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, you see it when James Dean sees Elizabeth Taylor for the first time. His eyes just light up, and then he can't look at her. He has to keep looking at the ground or looking away because...
Well, that just happens when you see Liz Taylor.
She was a beauty.
And then we're watching this go down, and I keep going back. The first 30 minutes of this movie is a totally different movie than the rest of this. And then Luz just fucking dies. She
doesn't just die.
She's like, I'm gonna... They like ride out, and then Liz Taylor's like, oh, it's so hot in this hot desert. And then Rock Hudson's like, don't worry, darling. Old James Dean's gonna drive you back in the truck. He doesn't talk like that, but in my head canon, he's talking like that.
You're talking like John Wayne.
Well, he's in Texas. So...
all the people of Texas do not talk like John Wayne, okay?
Pixar didn't happen. So, Liz Taylor gets driven back, and then Luz is like, well, I'll take her horse back for her, and the horse bucks her and fucking kills her.
Yeah, well, leading up to this moment, because you're forgetting, they want to introduce...
I forgot there's a whole movie before this, right?
Yes. Leslie is introduced to all the people that surround the property that Bick owns. So they have this huge barbecue to kind of welcome her to the community and also show her, that Southern Texas hospitality where, we get together and we have barbecue.
You eat some cow brains.
So it's this thing where they're going down the line and, Bick's like, oh yeah, you're going to try like the finest barbacoa. And it's like, it's, a really nice setup until they get to the goat or the pig or the whoever's head it is on the table.
Old Bill.
And Leslie just faints. And Liz Taylor does a good faint. She just completely crumbles.
That's what you put on the resume. I'm very good at fainting.
Yes. And she does it successfully. So after that, like the next day, that's when she's, okay, I'm up at 4 a.m. I'm going to be with you guys having breakfast. I'm going to go out with Bick Jordan for the day. And, she's out there in that Texas heat just sweating. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to send you home. And I guess my sister's going to stay. And all the ranch hands are telling the sister, don't get on that horse. It already kicked off a couple of the guys today. It's not safe. And I've been riding horses since I was 4 years old. I can tame whatever. And then, no, she's just digging her spurs into this poor horse's side.
And she just fucking dies.
Well, she gets thrown off the horse. Yeah, and hits her head on the rock.
I've said that 4 times. She just fucking dies.
That's why she just doesn't fucking die. There's a reason why she dies. She doesn't listen.
You're saying a strong, independent woman like Luz has to listen to a man and not die by a horse? Is that what you're saying?
If people are advising you that people are getting injured riding this horse, I think I'm going to listen to, you know what? Maybe I won't ride that horse.
Absolutely sexist. Luz, feminist icon right here.
Oh, God. And then more tragedy ensues when Rock Hudson puts down the horse.
Yeah, he blasts that shit.
And then, because Leslie has no idea, she comes back home and she's trying to console him. Are you better? Oh, yeah, I feel much better. And I'm just sitting there shaking my head because I'm like, oh, God, I know what's coming. And he's like, yeah, I put a bullet in him. It's just like, oh, God.
Well,
R.I.P. horse. R.I.P. whirlwind.
Hey, Hudson had to kill the horse for vengeance. That should have been a movie. Rock Hudson, I thought that's where the movie was going to start. Rock Hudson was going to travel throughout the West chasing this horse that killed his sister.
That's just something you would do.
It'd be great. But that's like the setup of the movie. That's like the first half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say first 45 minutes.
And when Luz dies, it turns into a whole different movie. Yeah. Then it's this story about this family who is this really indoctrinated, really entrenched, high-status rancher family, and how they transform from that very old, I guess it's not like aristocratic, that's like the wrong word, but very like old social status to how Texas and like wealth changes. Because after this, when Luz dies, that's when James Dean's character, Jett, gets just some random plot of land, like somewhere on the edge of the ranch, right? Yeah. Luz leaves it to him in her will.
Yeah, Luz and Jett are friends, and
oh, they're probably banging. I put cold money on it. That's why she brought him back.
I don't know, but they're friends, and when she does pass, she does leave him a small part of Rieta, and Bick and his friends are like, you know what? You got to get that property back for him just to get him out of your life for good. And Jett has, all the right senses about him where they're like, I'm going to put this $1,500 down on the table. You take this and we'll just, take that, dinky piece of property that my sister left you. And he was just like, nah, I'm going to stay here and bug the shit out of you while hopefully I get my big break on this property.
Like, I think land now is worth way more than that. Even like in the middle of nowhere?
Most likely, but for...
You could build condos on there.
But for, a rancher like Jett where he doesn't really have anything, $16,000 could get you a lot. It'll definitely get you out of Texas. Because that's one of the things that when, we first get Jett and Leslie talking to each other for the first time, he's talking about, I'm doing everything to get out of here. versus Leslie, who, this is my new home. I'm going to do everything that I can to kind of soak up the culture and, you know, really feel like this is my home now.
And that's the thing, because Leslie wants to become a Texan, like entrench herself in like that culture, but she butts up against that. They portray Texas in a light where it's almost like it hasn't evolved in a long time.
No, they want to keep it the way, basically, that they founded it.
Yeah, and she butts up against that, and that causes a huge rift between Leslie and Jordan, Liz Taylor and Rock Hudson. Huge rift. At that point, she's like, hey, we have a couple of kids, but I'm going to go to my parents' place on the East Coast for a while. You can stay here. And again, I'm like, wait, is this where James Dean like slides into her DMs? And I guess not, because that's when he strikes oil and finds out that he's now the richest man in fucking Texas.
Yeah. And I think it's...
How much oil was that?
I mean, it was just bling up. That's how much oil was on that little, you know, barren of land. But I think it's kind of sad that we see, you know, the first problems in their marriage are they're not really compatible because they're two very different people.
Yeah.
And Bick is supposed to marry, I guess, the neighboring girl that lives on, you know, the ranch that's closest to them.
Yes, to combine their kingdoms.
Yeah, you know, and, you know, it would work out because they're from the same place, same culture. So, yeah, you would think that it would kind of just be really cohesive, and he kind of goes against the grain and marries somebody else. But then we start to see the problems shift to when they actually have children, when they have twins the first time, and he completely ignores the little girl.
Yeah.
He is just very much...
Because he wants a son. He wants an heir apparent.
He wants an heir, and it's just, you see this little girl that wants to be, you know, acknowledged, and he's just so... No, you are gonna inherit the throne. You are gonna take care of all of this. I bought you a pony. And the little boy is just screaming bloody murder that he doesn't want to be near this animal.
And that's the thing. Like, that just sets up that relationship from the get-go, right? And that sets up, like, the whole dynamic between father and son, Rock Hudson versus his son, Jody, who's eventually played by Dennis Hopper in this movie. A person I didn't know was in this.
Yeah.
And that relationship setup is... The son you got is not necessarily the one you wanted.
Yeah.
And again, that's a really fucked up thing to say, but that's kind of the thing. The movie is talking about really fucked up things.
Yeah, because with Jordan, Bick, you know, he talks about how he was raised this way, his daddy was raised this way, his granddaddy was raised this way, and it's just like...
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle, but it's like, you know, when it comes to Jordan, it's like, did you just kind of, you know, go into this blindly and didn't have any other interests? It's like, what about your father? Did he have interests in other things? And he was just pressured to, no, this is your life. You were staying here. You were running this a certain way until I die, until you die, and, you know, so on and so forth.
Well, I mean, to go with that thing with the culture and whatnot, Rock Hudson's character, he was, like, when they were in Texas or whatever, like, he couldn't do anything else. Like, at that point, they didn't have cars when he was a young kid coming up. Like, it's one of those things where as like time evolved, you know, the Dennis Hopper's character, little Jordan, Jordy, he found ways out, and like, you know, society, the world changed, and that's what's going on. Rock Hudson's character, Bick, is seeing the world change around him, and how he is almost incapable of adapting to it.
He's pushing against the change. He's so stuck in the past. And it's kind of sad to see that, you know, he's not willing to evolve. And it's kind of sad to see that his kids are just kind of like, I really can't have a relationship with you because you think just in this one way, and there's no way of breaking you out of it. Yeah,
I mean, we get the first inkling that maybe not open to change, but like, where it is forced upon him, where he has the realization that change is an inevitability. And that's when basically Bick breaks down and he starts drilling for oil on his land.
Yeah.
Because once he starts drilling for oil on his own property, that's when he realizes, like, look, I'm a wealthy cattle rancher, but cattle is not enough.
No.
Like, that oil is the wave of the future, and that's what's going to make him more money, and that's going to make him more secure or whatever. And he does that, his kids grow up, and Jordy's gonna go off to be a doctor, and his daughter's gonna go off and
be an actress in Hollywood.
Well, that's Luz the second.
Yeah.
But his other daughter,
the twin.
The twin. God, I'm never gonna remember her name. Judy. Yeah, because there's Jordy and Judy.
Okay.
Yeah, and Judy, she wants to go off to learn animal husbandry at Texas Tech, and I'm like, bro, there's your heir. She's the. And I guess that's another thing about this movie, that weird sexist dichotomy where he wants a son to take the ranch, and his daughter not only wants it, she's way more capable than his son, but he's like, she's my daughter. She doesn't inherit the farm.
And
that's not how this works.
And to make things worse, he goes around her and offers it to her husband.
Yeah.
And says, you're, cattle rancher for life. And he's like, well, yeah, this is how I grew up. Well, I want you to take the reins. And he's like, I'm sorry, me and my wife, your daughter, have plans. We have made our plans for our own future. We don't want all of this. We don't want your 500,000 acres. It's like, we want our own thing and to do it our own way. Which
is so strange. But it makes so much sense because I'm guessing in like most real life, when your father or whoever at this point is a millionaire, multi-millionaire, when they are like, hey, we're going to give you like my entire fortune and you're going to have more money than you'll know what to do with, 99.9% of people are just going to take it.
Yeah.
But in this situation, it makes so much sense because he's trying to push not just his wealth, but that old ideology onto his kids. And they're just like, no, we're different.
We're our own people.
Yeah, or it's like society has changed. We're the new society. You're the old society. We leave that behind and we're going to get something new.
That and, with them having Leslie as their mom, Leslie's very open to new things and to trying, different avenues where Bick's like, no, we're going to do the same square over and over and over. And Leslie's like, you want to be a doctor? That's amazing. I will try to help you buffer the news to your father. But
the real news that Leslie has to buffer to Bick, Rock Hudson's character, is Jordy's new wife.
Yeah.
Jordy's new wife's name is what, Boo?
Juana.
Yeah. Do you think Bick took that well?
No. Bick does not take it well. Bick's the way he is around Mexican people in this movie.
Is this where we have to talk about the elephant in the room?
Yeah, because a lot of Mexican people work for the Benedict family.
Yeah, which is the, Liz Taylor, Rock Hudson. That's the entire main family in this movie is the Benedicts.
And right away when they get off the train, they meet Angel, who, has the car there waiting for them so that they could drive back to their home. Mm-hmm. And, right away she wants to know what his name is, and she learns how to say thank you in Spanish, and she just repeats it over and over. And you see Bick getting annoyed, and he's like, no, you don't have to say that. You don't need to talk to them. And it's just, they're people. And you're like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then you see it progress more once she gets home. And it's just like, wow, you have these people cooking for you, taking care of you, taking care of your property, and you just disregard them.
The thing is, it's like, when you're watching it, it's like, Rock Hudson isn't, going out and, fighting people or yelling. It's one of those weird things where it's like, it's weird to call it like this, but he's like that casual racist where if you ever ask him about it, he's like, nah, I treat everybody fair, blah, 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 blah. But then when, you see him interacting with people, you're just like, no, dude, you're racist. Mm-hmm. It's just a thing where you don't see it because that's just how you were brought up. Mm-hmm. Like, the world you were in is the old world where it was that's just how it was.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, as, Leslie, who has her own racial things, as we will talk about, she's seeing it and she's like, wait, no, why are you racist to these people? That's such a weird thing. And that's the whole thing where the West was settled, but it's settled by the old ideology, and the East Coast, kind of moved out of that kind of whatever. And it's just a really fascinating look watching Jordan, Bick, Rock Hudson's character just be a racist in this movie. It's weird to say. It's fascinating to watch him do that and how it changes and progresses and how society around him changes and progresses.
Yeah, because, we have, when Luz dies, Liz Taylor's character, Leslie, tells the doctor, hey, there's a sick mother and child not too far from here. They haven't been able to get a doctor down.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go help this baby. He's got at least 105 fever. And Bick's like, what are you doing? He is our doctor. And she's like, what, the Benedict family owns him? And he goes, no, they just have a way of, doing their own thing. And it's like, no, they don't. They just can't get their doctor all the way out to see him. And he's able to save the baby. And this baby turns out to be Sal Minio's character, Angel, who ends up going to war. I think that was Pearl Harbor.
Yeah,
the Second World War.
What happens is, I guess we'll get into that part because that's about in the story where we're at and what we're talking about. But yeah, so we see Rock Hudson's character racist, and his son-in-law is gonna go off and join the army, right? He's gonna go off, join the army, and Sal Minio's character, Angel, who is the son of one of the farmhands?
Yeah, Angel, who brings the car to Leslie and Bick when they get back from their honeymoon.
And he joined the army or the Marines or something.
And Bick is just so proud and, says, thank you to, our local hero that's going to go off to war. And it's like, a couple of years ago, you were ready to let that baby die because that's your doctor. He can't help these people, and it's just
and
astounding.
That's the thing. That's like the complicated thing about Bick's racism, because he is an out and out like racist. Like he uses like slurs to people.
Mm-hmm.
And is like kind of offhandedly like belittling people. And he's not like aggressive. He's not like punching people out. And he's like, oh, because of the color of your skin, I will murder. He's not like that. But when he sees Angel and he's like, oh, he's an American soldier, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, I guess I can respect a man in uniform, whatever. It's one of those like begrudging things, right? And his son-in-law and Angel, they go off to war, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Time passes and they come back. His son-in-law comes back. He's alive. He's a sergeant now. Mm-hmm. Everybody's, so excited. The war's over. And then as the train pulls out, you see there's a coffin there.
Yeah.
And that's Angel. Angel died in the war, and his family comes, takes him away, and they do the funeral. And that is a somber funeral.
Oh yeah.
When they fold up the flag and they give it to his mother. And
they give it to his father because his mother is just so distraught.
Yeah, they try to give it to his mother and she just can't. Mm-hmm. But this is the thing where I'm like, this is like the complexity of Bick, Rock Hudson, is he goes to like the family flag like display or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like all the flags like of Texas. He opens it up and he takes the flag of Texas and he personally goes up, like doesn't say a word. The funeral's going on. The father's there holding the flag, trying to console his wife. And they're watching their son being put into the ground, and Bick comes up completely silent, just hands him the flag of Texas. Mm-hmm. And it's almost in that moment, there's a moment of clarity with Bick. He's like, the person going in the ground, he's not American, he's not Mexican, he's a man. And he's Texan, he's one of us.
Yeah.
In that moment, it's like, he's completely accepted these people as people on their level. I think at that moment, that's when we see, like, the humanity in Bick, and we see past him, because up to this point he's this hard-headed kind of bastard. And not a bastard, he's just this kind of dunce.
Yeah, he's very thick-headed, and then the wall kind of goes back up once Jordy marries Juana.
Yeah.
Then it's like, are you kidding me? And then we kind of see, not like, are you kidding me that you married this woman? We hear it later where he tells Jordy, after Jordy gets in a fight with Jett, he's like, I told you it was going to be difficult if you went down this route. So you're not seeing like, oh, this is a terrible mistake. How could you? It's kind of like, I was telling you this because it's not going to be the easiest, because we see leading up to the fight that Juana makes a hair appointment before this big dinner.
Oh, yeah, because this is getting to like the climax of the movie, because throughout this we have James Dean character, he kind of jumps in and out of the Benedict's life.
Yeah.
But when he jumps in to kind of like pull Luz, like their youngest daughter, away from the family. He's like, he's got this girl on the line, he's pulling her away, and you just know that that's Jett's plan. He's going to make his enemy's daughter his trophy wife. Yeah. And that's going to be his victory. But we see that Jett has this huge drinking problem. He's also just as racist as Bick.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's sad to see where Jett was in the beginning, where he's just kind of like a humble ranch hand. Liz Taylor comes over for tea that one time and she sees the self-help book. So it's like, okay, so
he's much more of a guy you can relate with until he gets rich. Once he has the money, then it corrupts him. Because then, now that he has, like, the power and status, he's like, now I'm not like you guys. Now I'm better than you. Because now I'm rich.
I'm my own thing. And it's just like, he is this oil tycoon. He has his own airport. You have jet oil trucks that are just running through Texas. So it's like, he is this massive entity now. And it's like, you are no longer any of the person that you were that we met in the beginning of the movie.
Exactly.
That person is just gone.
And as he's seducing the daughter, he then invites the whole Bick family to the opening of his brand new hotel.
Yeah.
Right? And at this brand new hotel, it's like in the middle of Dallas or Austin or some big city, Texas. And he's planning to announce his engagement to the Benedict's daughter, right? He's gonna marry her.
Which is evil genius, because throughout the years he's trying to get Bick's, attention whatever way he can, and Bick's just like not taking in the bait. And then it's kind of like, well, you know what? His daughter kind of has an eye on me, so
she kind of looks like Liz Taylor.
Kind of looks like her, so I'm really gonna hit Bick where it hurts. I'm gonna take his daughter from him.
And that's the thing. You're just like, he's not the villain. I'm like, no, this guy's a doc. He's like Doctor No. He's a Bond villain.
Yeah, and then it's like, not only is he taking the daughter, it's the daughter that's named after Bick's sister,
which is why I think, like, him and Luz has a thing. Him and Luz Senior had a thing. Like, maybe that's his way of, like, trying to capture that past.
Maybe.
Because Luz, I feel like, was a representation of very old school, ultra traditional Texan.
Yeah.
And she might have been that, like, the Western mythologized thing, the frontier woman.
Yeah. And
Jett is trying to, like, recapture that. But he can't. Whole other thing. But the Benedict family goes. Juana, Jody's wife, she shows up and she's going to do a hair appointment, and they're openly racist to her. They say they won't serve her kind, they won't cut her hair, sorry. And Jody is like, wait, what the fuck? And he says, what's the meaning of this, blah, blah, blah. And they say, straight out, James Dean's character, Jett, made it a point that they will not serve any Mexicans in the building. Mm-hmm. Jody, finding out that the man who invited his family here made this blatant decree and feels offended for his family and his honor, basically he's gonna go and beat the shit out of James Dean
in front of everybody that's there to kind of honor him, because it's this massive banquet hall.
It's huge. Also, there's a shot near the end of this that I want to talk about in great detail because it's beautiful. Okay. But they're in the grand banquet hall. Dennis Hopper comes running out of the crowd, and he's gonna punch out James Dean, but James Dean's handlers, grab a hold of him, and James Dean, gives him the the 1-2-3 combo Shoryuken punch. Dennis Hopper goes down, and then you see Rock Hudson get up. He's like, "Oh no, you crossed the line, sir," and just challenges him to a duel. Kind of. Well, he tells him he's gonna I'm gonna go kick the shit out of you. Do you want to come with me outside? Or do you want to do it here? And James Dean is like, well, I'm already four martinis down. Might as well do it in the liquor cabinet. And they go off, and this moment, right? Mm-hmm. You have these two characters, and Rock Hudson, I have no idea how tall he is in real life, but in this movie, he looks like 7 feet tall.
Yeah,
he looks like a fucking monster of a man. And James Dean looks like James Dean, kind of skinny, relatively short, but it's like, I ain't putting money on James Dean to win this fight.
Yeah.
But James Dean's character is blasted. 3 sheets to the wind, and Rock Hudson is like, you ain't even worth hitting. You're just a sad, lonely old man, and you're gonna die the same way all sad and lonely men do. And just walks out. And James Dean's character is there, and I think he wanted Rock Hudson to beat the shit out. I think he wanted him to kill him.
Yeah, because when we see James Dean leading up to the big speech in this hall, he's sitting there talking to Bick's daughter, and we see her leave because she's just not really taking the bait.
Yeah.
And you could just see that he is very much a shell of the person that he used to be. He goes and he's just standing in the rain, and his handlers are like, come on, we got to get you dressed. And it's just kind of like, is it really worth it? Has any of this been worth it? It's like, yeah, I haven't had to worry about money or anything else, but I haven't had anybody to enjoy all this wealth with.
Yeah. And Rock Hudson leaves. He takes the entire Benedict family, and they're just gonna leave. They're gonna say, you know what? Fuck this, fuck everything, It's over. And then Jett Rink, James Dean, comes out of the liquor pantry or whatever, and gets up on stage. He's supposed to give this huge speech, and just passes the fuck out at the table.
Yeah.
And out completely. And we cut, and the daughter, Luz, she's like, one last chance. She's like, you know what? I still wanna try with this guy.
Yeah.
And goes back, and she creaks open the door to the banquet hall, and it's empty. It's blacked out. There's no one in there except Rink, still passed out in the same position on the fucking, like, dining table, right?
Yeah.
And he kind of comes to, gets up, and gives this slurred speech. And he just kind of rambles on, and and it's so sad. It's so depressing. You're watching somebody who had all the money in the world, all the opportunities, just wasted. You see a life wasted in this, and the giant banquet hall, it's shrouded in darkness, and then Rink just tumbles ass over end over the dining table, knocks everything over, and just goes back and passes out on the floor.
And that was actually James Dean's idea that he brought up to the director. He thought, you should have me do the speech and then pan out so you just see this empty room to just kind of see that that's who Jett is. He is just completely, utterly alone.
He's this guy that has all this opulence around him, and there's no one there to enjoy it. He's somebody who just pushed everyone away with his hate.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful sequence. And when he falls to the ground and just passes out, it's like, it's this guy on top of the world, and he's fucking nothing.
Yeah.
He's this guy who's like living garbage, and he can't even throw himself away. And it's a beautiful performance. I adore that sequence. Yeah. It is so good. And Luz seeing this is like,
my dad was right.
Yeah, my dad was right. Closes the door on Jett, and that's the last we see him. And then they are going to drive back to Texas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're in Texas, but they're going to drive back home. They're going back to Rieta.
And on the drive home, this is when I guess everything finally comes to a head. Because on the drive home, Rock Hudson, Bick, he's finally like, you know what, Juana? You're family. You can. You know what? I said a lot of things about you, but you know what? You're the daughter of my grandchild. You're the wife of my son. You're all right.
Yeah.
All right. Then. And he's like, I want to live a simpler life. I don't need the oil money. I don't need the jets. I don't need
the opulence.
I don't need the opulence anymore. After seeing Jett, I don't need this anymore. I go back to simple ranch life. And they're going to stop at a diner, going to have an old, like, cheap... They're going to go back to the roots, right?
Then he asked Juana, he's like, you want a burger? And she's like, yeah, you know what? A burger sounds great after the chaos of this past weekend.
And they pull into this diner. They're going to sit down. They're going to have like a family dinner, right?
Diner called Sarge's. It's like, it's got to have good burgers and hot dogs.
Exactly. They sit down, and immediately it is an issue. It is an issue that Juana is in this establishment with her baby, with all these white people around. And Benedict there, it's like, everything's going to be fine. And they're openly racist to Juana, right? And then, but everybody's just like, you know what? Just let it go.
I'm just going to have my lunch and
have our lunch and we'll leave. It's fine. They're not kicking us out. They're just being they're being pricks.
Yeah, they're being assholes.
And then this Mexican family comes in, and they sit down. The waiter comes over, and they're just like, oh, food, and they try and give him money, and he's like, nah, get out. We don't serve your kind.
Yeah, that's Sarge. Just lifts him up by his lapels on his jacket, and I'm just like, how dare you lift him up when this poor frail old man is trying to hand you a handful of coins.
Yeah, and you see Sarge, and you're seeing this guy who's like, okay, this is the out and out like beaten people racist guy. And then this is the moment where Bick finally is like, you know what? It's not okay. Just letting this shit slide ain't okay. And he gets up and he's like, Sarge, you ain't allowed to target people like that. You can't kick a man out of this establishment. And Sarge is like, I ain't kicking a man out. And Bick is like, all right, I guess it's happening. And they go at it fucking hard. They beat the shit out of each other. I love this fight.
I figured you would.
It is so good. Okay, because I'm going to put this out there. I don't know how many 1950s, like, fight scenes you've seen in movies, 90% of them are kind of shit by today's standards, just because you can see the punches missing.
Yeah.
You can tell the two actors fighting are not, they don't look like they could take a punch at all. Sorry, Cary Grant, I don't think you could have been a pro boxer. Sorry.
Still love Cary Grant.
Absolutely do. North by Northwest, masterpiece. But Rock Hudson being like 17 feet tall, and this Sarge guy being like 500 pounds of rock muscle, and they're just throwing each other over counters. They're breaking tables. They're smashing into things.
I love the cuts that they make where they show the baby watching it, and the baby's just like enthralled. It's just like
so fascinating. And the family, and everybody's like scattering. They're fucking gone. And the Benedict family's like sitting in the corner, and they're like,
they're in tears.
They're like, please stop, just stop. And then at the end of the fight, Bick loses. He gets dropped. And Sarge like throws the sign where it's like, we reserve the right to refuse service. Just tosses it on his chest, right? That thing where it's like, hey, I won because that's the rules.
Yeah.
And we finally get to the end of the movie.
Well, I want to go back to that because
that fight scene.
It's
because so good, right?
It takes him putting his hands on the older gentleman where Bick finally stands up. But when they first get there, Sarge comes out. And he's looking at them and he says, you know what? Can you get my grandson an ice cream? And he looks at the little boy and he goes, wouldn't you think he'd rather have a tamale instead? And you think that's when he's going to jump up and punch the guy in the face. And he sits there and takes it.
Yeah.
And Juana, she's almost in tears. And it's just like, is anyone going to do anything?
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing in the movie here. And I think that's the thing with Bick. I think up to this point, he was like, words don't hurt people. Actions hurt people. He's one of those kind of guys.
Well, I think even to that point, he hadn't accepted the baby as his grandson. Because Juana says to him, I think he wants Grandpa to get him an ice cream. And Bick's like, Grandpa? And he goes, yeah, you're right. I am a grandpa now. So it's like, I think it takes all of this turmoil to finally get him to realize this is your family. It may not look the way you anticipated. And that's jumping to the end when he says that.
Oh my god. Okay, so I gotta get to the end because it's that right there is the point of the fucking movie.
You're welcome.
That is the point of the movie. The end of the movie, Bick's there, Rock Hudson, he's got the bruises, he's got the black eyes. Liz Taylor's like, sitting with him, and he looks at his grandkids. He looks at Jody's kid, little kid, white, blonde hair, and then he's looking at Juana's kid. Little kid, dark hair, looks very like Mexican white kid.
Yeah.
And he's looking at him, and he's like, that kid right there don't look a lick like me, but he's a Benedict. And at that moment, everything clicks. It's like, this is a story about a guy who had this idea of a legacy, and seeing how culture and time and society changes, and legacies don't matter. It's the people that matter. It's the ones you love that matter. And then Liz Taylor just says to him, it's like, that when you were in that fight, that was the first moment I think I have ever respected you.
Yeah, because for 30 years, she's been trying to drill it into his head. You need to be more open. You need to be more empathetic. You need to change with the times. And it took an actual fist fight to get Bick to wake up and see, hey, this isn't right what people are doing. This isn't right what I'm doing myself.
And it's the thing where that relationship, it's 30 years of these two, they love each other. I'm convinced they both love each other. But you can tell they don't respect each other.
Yeah.
And then you finally see it when Liz Taylor is like, that is the first moment I think I've ever respected you. I think that's the first moment I finally felt like I could be a real Texan. And I'm like, this movie's so good. It's so good. The performance here is fucking fantastic.
And then I love when it ends, it pans onto the eyes of both children just saying, this is the future.
They're kids.
They're kids.
Exactly. They are the future of everything. Kids are the future, right?
The kids are the future, but you have Jordan the Fourth that's sitting there, and it's like, he doesn't look like Bick, but
he's got your name and he's got your blood. He is your kin.
He is probably who's going to take over Rieta next, or maybe his cousin that's sitting alongside him. Maybe she's going to take over. Maybe Bick will finally see, why can't a woman take over Rieta? My wife Leslie would love that if a woman took over Rieta.
I also love that because, on that note, Leslie Liz Taylor, throughout this whole thing, she is a strong woman who has her opinions and has knowledge, and she is like, Bick, you dumbass, just, there's literally a woman 9 times smarter than you in the same room. Just listen to her.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, sorry about that, boo. So, math. But yeah, like, this movie is just great. I don't know. How long have we been recording? It's probably been a minute.
Oh, we're about the hour mark.
We're about the hour mark. Okay, we're like 50-something minutes in. So, that's the movie. We went through most of the plot stuff in this very long, tangenty, great stuff. But yeah, I really dug this movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It's not romanticized in any way. It is very honest.
Yeah, which is weird for a Technicolor melodrama from the 50s.
For the 50s, yeah, because at that time, you think of a lot of, romantic epics, and this is very much, no, you were going to see the drama of one family. Well, technically, 3 families, her family, his family, and the family they create together. And it's just interesting to see. You don't really get too much sweetness from the 2 of them. It's a lot of bickering and fighting back and forth, but it's, I'm not going to leave you. She could have left him for James Dean, but she was just, I love you so much, and you're a dumbass, but I'm going to stick with you, and hopefully you will wake up and understand things a little bit better.
But yeah, no, I really dig this. Honestly, watching this movie, I'm like, because we've done like the little like ranking things or whatever, 1 out of 10. I'm like, this is probably the first like 9-10 movie I've seen, like very easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, watching this, looking back at Halloween Kills is like a 3 now. Like, this movie's so good, it makes other movies bad in comparison.
I mean, any reason for you to bash Halloween Kills, you'll take.
I mean, yeah. I don't know. Final thoughts?
I think it's a really good movie.
Would recommend?
Would recommend. Gets my blood boiling every time just to see how people are treated in this movie. And it's, it really hasn't changed today. A lot of people still act in this fashion, but
it's getting better. I look at it like
we
this.
can only hope that it will get better. We need more people like Leslie and Jordy who don't really see, hey, because you look a certain way, I'm going to completely disregard you. It's like Jordy was inspired by the doctor that Leslie brought into the village to take care of the people that live in this small village. And because of this man that she brought in, he was inspired to become a doctor. So you just see kind of like the circle of life, how these little things happen and expand people's universes. And it's just kind of nice to see that, yeah, their family wasn't the best, but they still tried to make the best of it.
That's a good way to put it. And I think I'll leave it at that. So, Boo, what are we going to be watching next week?
Next week, we're going to be watching Donnie Darko, which
motherfucker.
I know, Dean doesn't like it. He's seen it once, I believe.
I've seen it, actually, I've probably seen it more than once, but I remember the last viewing I had was very negative.
So I've never seen it. I'm surprised that I've never seen this movie before.
It very lines up in the goth chick lexicon.
I think the reason why I haven't seen it is anytime it's been on TV, it's either the middle of the movie or the end, and it's like, I'm not going to jump into a new movie like that.
Yeah.
So
it's also a movie that makes no sense if you don't know the context.
Well, I don't know the context. I'm trying to go in as blind as I can, so hopefully it's good. Maybe Dean will change his mind and like the movie after this viewing.
I mean, anything's possible. I didn't think I'd like this movie, but I really dug it.
Yes, Dean loved this movie. So if you want to find us on, a different platform than you currently are listening to us on, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're also on YouTube, along with Dean's other 2 podcasts. Why don't you tell everybody what we are?
Well, the other places you can find us on our YouTube channel, and that is In the Frame on YouTube, where you can find this podcast, the Film Club podcast, as well as our other 2 podcasts. That is the Film Odyssey, where me and my brother talk about some of the best movies ever made as we're going through the AFI Top 100 list, and the Too Obscure for TV podcast, where me and my buddy David talk about new movies coming out, art house movies, hard to find movies, generally hidden gems that really shine out if you give them a good watch. But with that, Boo,
we'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Peace.